There's a record on Zoom. There's a record button.
There
There we
we
go.
go. We're in progress. It's legally binding to let you know this is officially being recorded for the purposes of talking about your movies. I don't know, whatever disclaimer
Thank you
they need.
for.
No problem. So you training out in New York?
Let me find the position that. There we go.
All right.
Not at the moment. No, I've seen like some boxing gyms and places out here that I might check out, but for now, I've just been kind of focusing on work.
Yeah, I know how that is. I think I made it 4 times last month, maybe five. So
Uh,
yeah. But yeah, it's going good. It's way too hot out here. Like we had 2 snowstorms and
hmm.
so far this year, so it's not good.
I gotta make it back home though. Having hot days and is in winter is something to be grateful for.
Yeah. How is it out there?
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's bleak as hell.
Yeah. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
to each his own. So what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about your Easton movie, one more round? Like I just got done this after around noon watching everything you had up. So I've got notes, I've got questions. So, but
Yeah,
it's
we could
they're your movies, so tell me about them.
yeah, we could talk about Easton. Easton's a fun one. I'm interested in hearing what you got, what questions you want me to answer.
Okay. Well, first, let's see. With the one more match, like with Easton's, is it going to be like that? Is it going to be because one more match was kind of that like, not mockumentary because we weren't mocking it, but that documentary stylized fiction. And is that going to
Hmm.
be is it going to be with Easton too? Are you making a story out of it? Or is it going to be more on the documentary end of things?
Uh, Easton is a straight documentary. Easton is basically kind of like a how would I say this? Kind of like a painting of a Maul's life that frequently goes back to his past. And we're able to do that because he had so many incredible tapes
Yeah.
of his life, like being in Sao Paulo, training over there. There's stuff from like the early, early days of the Boulder Academy, which
Okay.
is really cool to see. So Easton is more a snapshot of a man, whereas One More Match was me trying to do something very ambitious.
It's
And
good.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, I've even got from one more match I got so we can rep Colorado things, Bierstadt Lager House. Nice
Hmm.
little I was like, "Oh, they're wrestling because my they when I was working at um what is that? Vision Quest in Boulder,
Hmm.
they came in and it's like she's one of the only female brewers in the state and she makes wonderful lagers. So I was told and my partner really likes it and she's like, "Oh, that's so cool," because she's got a little cup. But yeah,
Yeah.
so just rep them. Besides that was cool. But yeah, that was an interesting one more match because like it really for me and knowing that you're doing the Easton thing, I was like, all right, it's just seems like a documentary so far until and the second act, third act. I was like, oh, okay, there we go. There we go. There's the thriller part of it. So
Thank you, man. Thank you
yeah.
for watching. That one was it was a lot of fun. It was also really challenging. I think when you set out to do something like that and you're able to pull it off in some weird way, I guess. I always knew that I could film action, right? And I always wanted to film wrestling because I love martial arts, and I think a lot of people got into actual wrestling, like not actual, but like Greco-Roman amateur style through pro wrestling. So it's kind of nice to be around those worlds. And I'm really proud of some of the cinematography in that one in
Yeah.
particular. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked where were you at when you were talking to oh no, that's Frank. To one more match. No, David Ace is the antagonist. Who was the protagonist?
So
Um,
there was a Mercury Aiden.
Mercury
He's
Aiden.
the yeah, he's
Yeah,
the star of the film.
when you were up, it looked like you're up on Flagstaff in that one scene, kind of, where you're
Oh yeah,
talking to him
where were
about his
we?
life and why he started,
Hmm.
Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, right?
Yeah, we were in Golden, I believe, but we drove up. A lot of
Okay.
that movie was filmed in Golden at their the area where they do their wrestling, kind of like that arena where they do the horse shows and everything. There's
Oh,
like a
okay.
little yeah, there's like a little area with a barn and everything, and then this big kind of venue space. And we and that was probably one of the, excuse me, that was one of the coolest things about that was I was going back and forth to Golden all the time. And that is like such a beautiful, beautiful place to be. The skies out there, the colors, you'd
Yeah.
walk outside after shoot. We were the fun thing about Colorado here, it's like it's dark at like 4 o'clock, like pitch black, bleak, whatever. In Colorado, I'd step outside after a whole day of filming and it would just be sun and gorgeous clouds and all this stuff. And that was the case often with that movie. We'd lose ourselves filming all this crazy stuff and then go outside and the sun would still be out and it would just be such a mind fuck, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's like that casino kind of addiction where everything there's no light and you're like, all right, I'm focused on this. I'm gonna get this piece of art done. Oh yeah, there's a
Yeah.
world out here. Holy cow. Nice. And in I mean, doing the coming from jujitsu and watching that, like a lot of moves I saw in there were, jujitsu to the point of not submission, but to the point of here, I'm bending your arm this way, so you're gonna have to move this way. You're gonna have to
Mhm.
roll that way. How many of them, for just my own personal idea, knowledge of it, how many of them were like actually trained in any wrestling, Greco-Roman, jiu-jitsu, or any judo like that was a large percentage, or is it just, is that kind of a different style or a different format for people to, enter the world of wrestling in that way rather than being, like a pure gi guy who only does gi, but there's also no gi kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, Damon, who plays the antagonist in the film, I believe is either a blue or a purple belt and actually trained at Centennial for a while, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, Tippy,
Yeah,
busy. Go watch it with Grandpa. Go watch Steve Tippy. I'm busy. The missus is at yoga and I'm like, I got 2 o'clock. I can't miss this. And so got the
yeah.
kid watching TV. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Um,
no worries.
uh, oh, does he still train or is,
I'm not
I
I'm not sure
mean,
if he still does, but he trained jujitsu and then he competed in Muay Thai for a while, so
okay,
he's definitely one. There's a few other guys that we would talk about training. I'd say like there was a handful of guys there that came in from that martial arts background.
okay,
And the thing that I want to emphasize about pro wrestling, I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. One of them is that that ring is soft or it's some kind of like bouncy castle. It is not. It is plywood boards with a very, very thin thing of canvas. And when I first got in there, the first day we were going to film, the first thing I did was go into the ring and kick my legs out, and just
yeah,
fall backwards. And I'm like, yeah, kind of like jujitsu, but also if I was getting slammed every day from like 6 to 10 feet in the air, this would suck.
yeah. No, and that's the
Sorry about
thing.
that.
They're not, it's not like you're break falling from even a guy throwing you, like giving you a hip toss or something. You're jumping
Mhm.
off a ladder. Like
Yeah,
you're
you're
jumping
you're
off.
jumping off a ladder, you're getting hit with a chair. I saw there was a hardcore match I filmed where thumbtacks got involved.
I saw
It
that.
was they put their bodies through hell in order to entertain an audience, and there's something very admirable about that. And I hope I captured that in the movie. I wanted to pay like the wrestling a good deal of respect,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
should be. I mean, I'm just like, why don't you just lock up, foot sweep them, get on top, make it really boring, and then choke them. That's what you're supposed to do, right? But
Yeah.
that is like that's for my old ass. It's just like too athletic for me. I'm gonna do the old man jujitsu. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
So that was your first full length feature film, or
Yeah, technically, the features and shorts are kind of hard to distinguish for me because like I would look at anything like under 50 minutes as a short. but that's not how a lot of festivals do it. They categorize anything above 40 minutes as a feature. So technically I've done others, but this one was the first where it's like this thing's an hour and a half. It's dense. It's got like a lot into it. And it felt dense. It was the most difficult one to make by far.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen some other ones where you're doing your Bronx stories, and those are pretty funny as well,
Oh,
and
thank
pretty,
you.
and it's the funny, and that's why I've seen a lot through all the films is both the humor and the, tragic aspects of the stories that you tell seem to like stem a lot from family relations in some form or another. Like again uh in the in yours specifically with your mother, and your father and being grown up in Brooklyn and having a Bronx and not having the money and having to do this, and your mom, I thought it was funny. You're like your mom was the telepsychic, and she's like,
Hmm.
I thought the only non-Caribbean telepsychics were all old Jewish ladies in Brooklyn and New York. Like it was either you got one or the other. So for me, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that reinforces something that I thought, but probably is a complete stereotype. And then in it was almost in the body modification film, it seemed like at the end you were almost like the chaplain at a wedding for the two. Tell him what you love about her and tell her what you love about him. And that was, I told my partner who had to walk out of the room because she couldn't handle the hanging, or not the hangings, the
The
what is it?
suspensions.
Suspension. Thank you. She couldn't
Yeah,
handle that.
yeah.
I'm like, you missed the sweetest part, Laura. You just had to get through the suspension part of a guy being hung up by his back. And there's actually a very sweet little end to it. So
Thank
uh,
you.
yeah. So it seems like also a lot of your movies are coming from Mutiny Cafe. Like you have obviously that one. That's what
Hmm.
the 30 minutes or so, 30, 40 minutes that talks about
Yeah, that one's about 30.
yeah,
Yeah.
each person's role there. And then in the suspension one, who was what that gentleman who was in the band as well, who was in Primal Slug or Plasma
Yeah, yeah. His name's Kyle. He's a very
Kyle,
and Slug City is the band
Slug
name.
City. All right.
And they're very talented guys. And he's really interesting. I think he was one of the first times that I talked to somebody on camera about like body modifications and stuff, which has kind of become like a theme in the work I do. Especially the new thing that I'm working on. But that was really interesting because he famously cut his own nipples off.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so one of the things that I felt like I was doing with that early stuff is kind of showing people a side, because I think everybody knows about tattoos and piercings to some extent. But the cool thing about covering subcultures is that you get to show people things that are happening. They're happening with a lot of people around them too. These
Yeah.
are like communities of people doing these things, and people are just completely unaware. And I think if you get past the tendency to want to judge, or maybe freak out over seeing something, like you said with his interview, you're able to kind of get like a really sweet emotion out of it because at the end of the day, they're just people, that are doing what they want to do. So that was kind of how that got started.
Nice. Yeah. And so how did you go to the Mutiny Cafe at first? What was your first, introduction to that? Because, when, where, because that seems like it's kind of a seminal point in your storytelling for a certain aspect of your storytelling. So it was like that
Yeah.
day like, I guess.
Mutiny started. I had done some tattoo interviews with people that were pretty big, are pretty big rather, in the Denver tattoo culture. And that impressed the owner of Mutiny. So he started following me, and I'd gone there a few times when I'd been in Denver. I really liked that part of Denver. Broadway was Broadway, now they're over in Inglewood.
Yeah.
But I would go down there pretty frequently, and I would stop in Mutiny, and I would just kind of, have a time, have a coffee and a book, like the people say in the movie. And I was so taken by the space, like it's such a beautiful place, and like all artwork and kind of the, the photo booth, like everything there, these towering bookshelves. It had this really unique aesthetic to it. And I said, I could go crazy in here with all these pinball machines and everything. So it was just a matter of asking. And they said, hey, we're cool if you want to do something. Just be mindful that we're going to be moving this location. So you might want to act a little fast. And I think I cut that one in about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. Like, because yeah, there's what, six different stories in there?
There's quite a few, and it kind of, I think with my stuff, there's a lot of documentaries that want to go from like A to B about who started everything, blah, blah, blah. And there's some of that in there, but I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of have these snapshots of people that just, really love that place. And it was really collaborative. I would film one person and then someone would say, "Oh, you have to talk to the Enigma," and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Who's the Enigma?" And they're like, "Oh, this is the," I'm like, "That's, yes, I would love to talk to the Enigma. Is the Enigma available today?"
Yeah.
Uh, and I actually ended up making a film about him from
Yeah.
meeting him for the Mutiny Project. So it was really cool to kind of do something that gave people an impression of what the place is like and why it means so much to people instead of just like, here's how it was built. Here's how, because I like that sort of thing, but I do kind of also like having a non-linear approach to documentaries.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
And then there, from there, you also have the one about you have one that kind of leads into train hopping, and then you have the one with because he used to do jujitsu with us too. What's I got my notes. Let me get my notes.
Yeah, Mason,
Mason,
Mason.
thank you. Yeah, because I've
Yeah.
I've got them all here. So it's
Hell
Mutiny.
of a guy.
Yeah, he's a
Hell of a
great
guy.
guy. He good cook. I've seen him on the Instagrams with his meals. He's like, I cooked this meal. I'm all, bro, I cooked eggs and bacon again. I got some toast. We're good. But he's like, I got the chicken duck à l'orange. Look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a fun guy and good
Chef
grip
of the
strength
future.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was it that one?
Yeah, I did one with him that was kind of
Yeah,
focused on like train hopping. That's a really that was one of my favorite ones to do. When I make something about a person, again, just like a mall, he showed up with like hundreds of pictures of people that he traveled with, of him traveling on the trains. So I always tell people like I'm gonna shoot a lot and it's gonna be pretty decent. But if you have old stuff to give me, that always takes things over the top.
yeah, nice. And I like that line in the Mutiny Cafe show. Sticking to the man is making sure everyone has food. Because back in the
Hmm.
day when I protested, we were feeding people food, and Mutiny Cafe was definitely cool with us, talking to people, getting people to come out and be like, hey, we're trying to feed people food. So that was really
Hmm.
nice with me. And then the funny thing is, for the punk pain and healing, a train hopper's story. The shittiest place that Mason has been to is somewhere in Alabama because my partner's from Alabama and she
Hmm.
loves her state, but she's like, there's definitely places here that are not good. So, oh, and then the profession of the prison tattoo. So, did you get to meet Piper through Mutiny as well? Was that also a connection that you had there? Or was it through the tattooing community? Or was he one of the
Pi
first people you interviewed?
Piper, no, Piper came during the Parlor Project, which was when I went around photographing Denver tattooers essentially.
Okay.
And during that time, I started filming a bunch of people in their shops, which was like a really cool way to do it because tattoo shops have like art all over the walls. There's like a lot of really cool aesthetic stuff that you could do in a tattoo shop. And I think tattooing inherently is like really interesting to look at least for maybe like, about half an hour to an hour. If you ever sat while someone's getting tattooed, it can kind of be a little bit of a, you know. But Piper was someone who I was going to do an interview like that with, and then it just didn't work out for whatever reason. So I said to him, "Hey, why don't you come down? I'm doing this like studio thing. It's like a little bit more polished." and we cut that interview then, and that was a really cool one too, because that's just a great story. You have a guy who goes into prison at a very young age, ends up doing some real serious time, and while he's in there, picks up a craft that he's able to do at a high level and like provide for his family. Right. So like best case scenario. And then you also get to hear kind of the culture about what that's like. I'm trying to show people in all of these things like a different side of life that they might not be familiar with. So I was really proud of that one.
Yeah. And it kind of goes on. I think it's a different aspect that you're looking at the same thing with the proud Chicano father down
Hmm.
Cawita Valdez. Down,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, good. Down in Pueblo, like that was kind of the same thing. Like, it was just somebody looking for a community, looking for, to reconnect with or to connect even more with their culture and what came of that. So I thought that was nice. Again, back to your telling it from the family's perspective or from family, like that. What was that one like? Did you get to a sense, because Colorado has a big Chicano history. Did you get a
Hmm.
sense of how massive that is and get a little different peek than normally would on the Colorado's Chicano culture?
Yeah, so when I was doing my first series of interviews, I interviewed a man named Louis Rodriguez, and he's an old school, Denver local, Chicano, and he's covered in tattoos. He has like a brilliant bodysuit that he's accumulated over the years. And I photographed him, and I love photographing him because we've always just had, great chemistry, great time around each other. And Quito was someone that when I saw him, I'm like, oh, I have to photograph this guy. I have to.
Yeah,
And because his face tattoos are so striking, and the way he's done them to me is like really beautiful. So I
yeah,
wanted to work with him for a while. He pulled up, we cut that interview, and it was really cool. I actually did that one in color
yeah,
because I really wanted to emphasize, the way his tattoos kind of look, and I felt like black and white would have been like almost a disservice to them. So that was a really cool interview too, because learning about the Chicano culture out in Colorado, it was like every time I went out to do a project, I was learning a little bit more about my home, because New York never felt like home. I just happened to have been born there, right? So when I made the decision to come out to Colorado, there was a lot of intention behind that, and I was there for so long, still am really,
yeah,
and that was like what inspired me. So it's like I'm going and I'm seeing these different parts of Colorado. I'm going to places that like, I wouldn't otherwise have any reason to go. So I was learning a lot and like really immersing myself in kind of the car stuff out there, the car culture with lowriders and all this other stuff. There's a lowrider that's a very prominent kind of like visual motif in one of my movies called Gangsters. Kind of serves as like this idea of like tradition, but also time passing,
yeah.
So that for a while I was really into lowriders.
Nice. Where can people find the Gangsters movie, or is that coming out soon?
The issue that I've run into
Okay.
is that I decided to take the festival route with all of them, and right now I'm kind of whittling it down to which ones I want to continue pursuing festivals. And when a film is tied up in a festival, they're very strict about where it can and can't be shown.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's why I kind of take it upon myself to make short form videos for like Instagram and stuff and YouTube out of these longer pieces, because that's a way where I could just show people, like get some engagement, get people excited, because the process with the festival takes months. It could even take a full year, depending. You'll submit an application for one in December, and the deadline date will be March, so you're kind of in this constant state of just waiting.
yeah. But you're in a good place too, because I heard this when I was down in the Springs at IFSOC, the International or the Film Society uh in Colorado. Fuck, I'm drawing a blank. It is the IF, not international, Independent Film Society of Colorado. Someone's like, you know, Sundance is coming to Colorado. That means Hollywood's coming
Hmm.
to Colorado. And so there's all these films coming. And that's, that's kind of what Colorado Films is about, is saying, hey, look, there's all these films. But, it's volunteers at a lot of them. Like big ones, of course, people are getting paid. But some of the smaller ones, yeah, it's hard because you're like, I got a year. I got to wait for some guy who's doing this on his free time or her free time or their free time to look at my film, give me some, and then it sets you back. So, yeah, okay. So, we can look at your Instagram for a lot of this kind of sneak peeks into the movies they said are coming up. Because I know you also mentioned earlier that there's a new one you're working on now. If you could tell us about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so the on my Instagram, on YouTube, periodically I'll post like clips from things that I have in the festival circuit. Another thing that people need to understand is it's a competition, and some years you don't get it. So you might run through a period where, you submit to one thing, they turn you down, but then the next year it gets in, whatever. So I've selected about four pieces that I want to continue to push until something breaks. If I was to make a jujitsu analogy, it's like I'm going to keep going to fight to win until I get one, so to speak. In terms of what I'm working on now, I've wrapped up a very quick. It was a project that I'd started working on a long time ago when I was going back and forth here. It's about a sideshow performer in Coney Island that is known for swallowing razor blades. So this one is wild. It is very crazy. It is also very beautiful in a sense because Coney Island has always been a source of inspiration for me. I think if you're a poor kid in New York City, you go down there, it's kind of like Disney in a sense. It's beat down, but it's colorful and it's vibrant and it's like we didn't know any different. And I always get like a very sincere rush of nostalgia whenever I'm down on Coney Island. So to be able to film the park, which is called Luna Park.
Yeah.
Coney Island's actually the neighborhood. Luna Park is the actual amusement park. So to be able to film it, to be able to film one of the performers, and to be able to film inside Coney Island, like inside those
Yeah.
projects, where the people live, where things are actually happening. We were there. We were out there. We made a real ass, very gritty film about someone who has chose to live their life a certain way in the pursuit of their art. And I think that's a theme that you can see throughout 9/10 of the stuff I've done. You
Yeah.
know, people that want to pursue something and they don't care what society says, they're going to do it the way they want to do it. And I'm very proud of this one. It was shot in Coney Island and then also partially in Philadelphia. There was a couple of shows that we filmed out there with this person performing, Nikki, her
Okay.
name is, and it was a really really great time, and it tested me in a lot of ways. I wanted this to be my most like technically put together piece, you know.
Okay. And what were the kind of the technical ways that it did test you? That
That's
do
a
that.
good question. So yeah, every time I make something, I want to get closer and closer to that parody of like what you would see in a theater or what you'd see like, the people that I looked up to. I was really inspired by a lot of run and gun guerrilla style documentaries. Like when I was a kid, HBO would have crazy stuff like Taxi Cab Confessions, and they'd have all these like
Yeah.
independent document well, not independent because it's HBO, but they but they were very very DIY documentaries that they would put out. So my goal for this one was I didn't want there to be any visible mics whatsoever. So that meant that everything had to be professionally mic'd. So when you're going about that with a team, it's no problem. You hire some guy, he shows up with a boom, you do the whole thing, he takes care of it. It was just me.
Yeah.
So every time I do one of these things, I'm kind of forcing myself to learn another element of this art form, um, which has been one of the most rewarding things about it.
Nice. So that's is that going to be in color or is that in black and white? Or we got
Surprisingly, it's in color.
okay. And
Most
what's
of it's in color.
all right. What's the difference between like shooting in color and shooting in black and white? I'm just, I'm complete noob. I bought a domain name and now I'm talking to actual, filmmakers and artists. So I need to learn this stuff quick.
Yeah. I don't shoot in black and white. I always shoot in color, and then I in editing and post processing I turn it into black and white.
Okay.
And for me, it's just like there's certain scenes where you kind of look at like what makes this interesting. Sometimes black and white for me is a mood. Like when I did Gangsters, it didn't make sense for any of that movie to be in color. I'm like, this is a movie that has like a very distinct vibe. Some of my earlier stuff too, it's just like I was really obsessed with like black because I grew up loving black and white movies. So that I definitely lean in that direction. But in this one in particular, there's one performance where the star is on stage in kind of like this pink dress and then performing with another person who has like very flowy blue hair. And when you look at those colors and the way they kind of interact with each other, it doesn't make any sense to take that away, right? If anything, you want to bump that up. Another thing that I did, which was kind of my reasoning of putting most of it in color, was when we were filming in Coney Island, it's like to take away the color from Coney Island, it is kind of interesting. It gives like a timeless vibe, but there's all these blues and yellows on the beach and like the sunsets and kind of like the pastels of the park, So I really wanted it to look almost like an older film of New York, you know,
Okay.
like a timeless kind of thing. So there is some black and white to it also, but then there's a lot of color work that was painstakingly done to kind of look like old film, and that was the direction I went with that one.
Okay. Nice. Look forward to it. You can't, I'm sure you
Thank
can't
you.
say the film fest, but when you can, let us know. We'll put it up there for you. So with R. Allen Brooks, I like that one a lot too, and how he,
Thank you.
yeah, like that's because I went through and watched all the tattoo ones, and then I think, however, it went, he was one of the last ones. I'm like, that's a nice change from kind of these more documentary style recordings to a more comedy style. Like I thought that was different. And was there a change that you noticed when making the, kind of more, obviously not lighthearted because it's a man's life's work, but he had a more lighthearted way to look at it. Did you notice, like, was there any filming or anything you could talk about that? The difference between, something a little more gritty and real versus something a little more comedic, at least to me.
Yeah, when I started with all this, I did three films where I just kind of acted in them and had friends help me out, and those were all like comedies, kind of like dark comedy type things. And then with that one, he was in Mutiny, R. Allen Brooks, and he gave like a very charismatic interview. So I knew when we cut this one that it would probably be, similar to that. But just the way that he kind of talks about his art, whether it be rapping or writing. I really loved that one thing he said about like, you think you can copyright an idea, but you can't because that whole interview is very much about the working artist,
Yeah.
which is something that's very interesting. It's like I've done this for a living for a really long time. I've made videos for people. I've done like marketing, social media, all kinds of stuff. And when you kind of like make your food with it, so to speak, it's different, And it was really interesting for me. Because I think a lot of people want to pursue something creative, but they get caught up in their head about all these different things, and the realization is that like you're going to be doing it while you work a job, in order to maybe one day pivot out of your job and just do that. But there is like a whole world of adversity and struggle that you have to go through in order to get to that point. You have to go through mockery, you have to go through discouragement, you have to go through people not getting it. You get to a certain point where people hate you irrationally and you don't know why, The reason is because you're trying something and people hate that more than anything.
Yeah.
because of, what it stirs up in them, I guess. But I felt like he was a perfect example of that trajectory. And as someone who went through that myself, it was very relatable. So I figured it'd be relatable to others.
Yeah. So what was your insurance man moment then?
Oh God. Well, I've been on my own for like a really long time, and I got to a point where I was like, all right, I don't want to teach. And that's what I was going for initially. I was going to teach English, high school. Did about a year of that and said, fuck no. Then went to work in restaurants actually. This was right before I moved out to Colorado the very first time. I was working in restaurants, and I would stare out at this one restaurant that I was working at. It was on 50th and 8th Avenue, which is kind of like near the theater district. So you're seeing a lot of affluent people coming and going, enjoying theaters, but you're stuck inside kind of watching through the glass. And then I kind of started to have that realization about like, whatever life is, it's not this. Like I've gone through so many things, and then to be unhappy in this aspect too. So that's when I picked up a camera for the first time and started saying, like not with like, oh, it's gonna turn into this and this and this, but it's like, let me try something at least. Um, and it was one of the few things that I stuck with in my life. It took years to get somewhere with it,
Yeah. And
you know.
what was your first big success? However you define your first big success.
I think mine was I've had monetary I've had monetary successes. I was a marketing director for the past 3.5 years based off the creative work I had done that got me noticed, and I look at that as like a highlight of my life that changed my life in many ways. But the first win, so to speak, was purely psychological. It was me walking out of a restaurant. I was training to work at this steakhouse on Wall Street. And I heard, yeah, and it's near a park. There's a park near Wall Street. It might be Battery Park. I forget the name. I'm not really down there that often, but the sun was setting and it was a beautiful day. And I said to myself, I want to just leave this place and I want to enjoy that sun that I see over there in the park, and the thing that I had to do in order to enjoy that sun was to walk out of that restaurant. If I walk out of that restaurant, I'm leaving this job, that they're training me. And I said, you know what? I think I'm done with all this. I think I'm done with the hospitality. I think I'm done with this bullshit. I want to, take this camera stuff. Back then it was photography, and see like where it can go, So I gave the guy my apron. I said, "Sorry, I don't think I'm going to do this." And I walked out, and that was that was a huge win for me because that was the decision that, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to be.
Nice. Should have grabbed the steak from the back on your way out too.
I should have go out and grabbed a lot. That place that place was horrible.
I mean, I couldn't imagine, but
Yeah.
shitty jobs are shitty jobs. So we got about 2 minutes left. Is there anything you want to plug? You want to talk about? I know we've talked a lot about it. Like anything new you've seen, anything you like, any artists, new artists you've been into, anybody else, whatever. Kind of got some time.
Uh Yeah, I saw a movie called Peter Hujar's Day. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's literally just about a 70s photographer in New York who was really famous, talking about his day to a friend who records the conversation, and that's it. And it was so amazing. Like I love seeing things like that kind of subvert our expectations of what movies can be. I'm really excited for Easton to kind of find a home. I'm hoping that it does favorably in festivals, but I'm really proud of that one, and I'm really proud of the reception that it's gotten from people who have just, seen bits of it. Amal has seen the full thing, obviously. He was
Yeah.
a fan of it.
Nice.
But I'm very proud of the response from people and very appreciative as well, especially to Boulder Magazine. They did an article on us recently.
Yeah.
So I'm just thankful and hoping that all this crazy effort leads to something, whatever it is.
All right. I think it will. I mean, I like it. I've seen what you have up and it's pretty good stuff. And I've so glad that you came on and talked to me today. When you come back, we'll have to get together and, shoot the shit as well and maybe get some jujitsu in. But we got less than a minute. You want to give us your socials?
Yeah, Bruce Michael Films pretty much on everything, and you can see my photography and my film stuff there.
All right. Well, Bruce, thank you very much. And, can't wait to see you back in Colorado.
Thank you, Corey. Have a great one, brother.
See you, buddy.